take for you. You don't feel unhappy because your life is bad. You feel unhappy because of what you practice every day. Let me explain. Happier people are not lucky. They don't just have better circumstances or a better life than you. They train their minds differently. They approach their habits differently. And so they don't necessarily have better lives, they just have better habits. Today I'm going to help you get into a similar boat. I'm going to be diving into 3 common mistakes we make that are probably making you a lot more unhappy than you realize. And then I'm going to give you 4 really simple things that you can implement today in order to just have a happier life, because who doesn't want that, right? Happier life sounds pretty great no matter who you're talking to. The 4 tips I'm going to give you are going to address 2 things that you can do in order to add more joy and happiness to your life, and 2 things that you can do in order to help better manage adversity. Because like I said in the beginning, happier people don't just have better lives. Everybody's dealing with some shit. Everybody's got some hard things that come their way. The skill is how you handle them. And so that's part of what we're going to talk about today, is handling those adverse moments better so that they don't drag you into a pit of despair. So if you're someone who's listening that is ambitious and you want a better life and you want to feel happier, but things still feel really heavy or you feel really behind, good. This episode's for you. Because the truth is, lasting happiness does not come from some external achievement or accomplishment. It is something you cultivate within yourself. It's like your internal ecosystem. So today, we're going to work on cultivating that ecosystem and injecting a little bit more happiness back into our lives. Because like a quote I once saw, I couldn't for the life of me tell you who said it. It circulated around social media with no real credit for the longest time. But maybe the amount of good things in your life depends on your ability to notice them. And if better habits and a better mindset and honestly just a better life in general sounds good to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we talk about this stuff a lot. We are here twice a week building stronger minds and a stronger body. And I'd love to have you as part of our community. All right, welcome back to the show. We are diving into the first segment of this episode, which is common mistakes you're probably making that are keeping you stuck, that are sabotaging your happiness probably a lot more than you think. These are things that we all do on a regular basis that are quietly stealing a little bit of joy. And I'm going to start with number 1, constant monitoring and evaluating of yourself. This is something that I think a lot of us engage in. We are constantly evaluating our place in the world and monitoring how we're doing relative to the people around us. Which, if you've heard me talk about this in another episode, makes some sense because it was actually a survival technique years and years ago for us to gauge our place in the tribe. But we're spending such a disproportionate amount of time doing it now, especially because of social media and because we're constantly bombarded with other things and other people to compare ourselves to, that we actually lose a lot of time that we could be present, just stuck in our heads trying to figure out where our place is and figure out how we stack up compared to everybody else. So my prompt for you with this first one is to monitor less and participate more. Focus on trying to engage in your own life and enjoy the experience of what it is, more so than just trying to grade yourself and evaluate yourself against everybody else. Because the thing is, everybody else is doing this, and no one else out there is monitoring you and evaluating you and judging you as hard as you're judging yourself. You're putting all this unnecessary pressure on yourself, and you're stealing joy from the present moment because you're not focused on it. Number 2 is tying your mood to your performance. And this is another one that we commonly do that is sucking the joy right out of our day. And it's placing the weight of our self-worth on how we perform. And on the days where we perform really well and we're hitting all the boxes and we're ticking all the boxes, we're doing all the things, it feels really good. Great. This doesn't seem like such a harmful thing, right? You feel like you're on top of the world because you're doing everything right, and so your self-worth feels high. It feels like you are a quote-unquote good person or a valuable person. But when you have off days, which you inevitably will because we're human, we all have them, not every day is going to be perfect. There's going to be days where you show up in kind of a subpar way. There's going to be days where you don't hit the goal or the target that you wanted to hit. There's going to be days where You don't perform in a way that you want to. Maybe you'll get critiqued by coworkers or friends or bosses or somebody else on what you're doing. And if you've put the entire weight of your self-worth and have tied the emotional quality of your day to your performance in that thing, then this thing has the ability to make or break your day. And it should not have that amount of weight. Although it may not always feel like it, you are in control of how you feel on any given day. You are in control of your mindset and the quality of your mood. And we need to stop outsourcing it to this external thing and letting that be the thing that dictates it. You decide how you feel. The other things that are happening externally are just things. Just observe them with an objective eye. Don't make it mean something about your self-worth. And the last mistake that I want to talk about is making everything personal. And as soon as I explain this, you're probably going to be able to picture at least one person in your life who behaves this way, where every negative thing, anything that comes their way, any minor inconvenience is seen as a personal attack. They have this air of, the world is out to get me, everybody's a jerk, the world's full of awful people, like just this like really negative, everything's a personal attack on me kind of framing about the world. The truth is, we are all so focused on our own experience and our own life. We're so wrapped up in our own experience that honestly, we probably don't even have the mental bandwidth to be making constant personal attacks on anybody the way that some people think attacks are being made. We are very self-focused creatures, which is also why we can fall into this trap, because all of these negative things that are happening around us, we really struggle to see the other person's point of view. We struggle to understand where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing, and so we only understand it from our point of view. We only understand it from the point of view of, this thing feels like an attack on me. This thing feels really awful. Therefore, this other person must intentionally be trying to hurt me. That's not the case. And so this is a fun little exercise that I want to encourage you to do, that I like to engage in when I find myself struggling with this one, is imagining that you are a secondary or tertiary character in somebody's movie. So the fact that we are so self-focused and we are so wrapped up in our own reality, our own present, means that for any given person, their life is the movie and they are the main character, right? You are the main character of your life. I'm the main character of mine. Your mom is the main character of hers. Your best friend is the main character of theirs. Everybody has their own movie going on in their heads and they are the main character. So when something happens to you in your movie, in your perspective, it feels very attacking. It feels very awful, right? Because all of these other people must exist to play some role in your movie. But that's not it. They're all playing out their own movie. And so I want you to imagine for a second that you're no longer the main character. This isn't your movie anymore. This is somebody else's, and you are a tertiary character, right? You are just someone passing by. You're a bystander who's been, inadvertently affected by something going on in their movie. So I like to use that as a quick little reframe just to help get me out of my own self-focused bubble. Not everything is a personal attack on you. Everyone is dealing with their own shit. Everyone's dealing with their own movie. Try to make an effort to see it from their perspective before you let it ruin your day. Okay, now, let's get into the good stuff, okay? We've talked about the mistakes, so now you're probably wondering, Emily, how do I make this better, okay? How do I live a happier life? How do I feel like a happier person? Because that sounds great, but it's much easier said than done. Well, let's get into what you can do. And number one is connect with people daily. Bonus points if it's face-to-face. One of the strongest predictors of happiness is not wealth, productivity, or achievement. It's connection. Simply spending time with others, even just doing ordinary things like going for a walk, eating, or just having a conversation with somebody else, is linked to higher daily happiness. And the reason I'm saying that you get bonus points if you do this face-to-face is because the chemicals that are released in your brain that produce happiness when you're around other people, like dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin, you don't get the same boost of these chemicals connecting with people digitally. You do get it to some extent, but it's not the same. And you can probably relate to this, right? Especially during COVID when we were in the middle of the pandemic and all you could do was connect with people digitally. It was nice, right? It still felt good to connect with others, but there was this sense of something missing, because there kind of was. Because your brain is not releasing the same concoction of chemicals as it would if you had been with this person face to face and actually seen them physically. And I think connection is one of those things that can kind of get lost in the sauce, honestly, in the big picture of our lives. When we think about our goals, we think about, career-related goals, family-related goals, achievements, how much money we want to make, how we want to look, all of these kind of external things. And connection with others and prioritizing spending time with other people often doesn't make the list. But it's actually a really big pillar of your well-being. There was a study that showed that lack of connection, including loneliness and social isolation, was as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. 15 cigarettes per day? I think we all know smoking's bad for your health. I don't think we all realize that not connecting with other people can have such a similar and profound effect. And this notion is also supported by the PERMA model of psychological well-being, PERMA, which stands for the 5 core elements of well-being that was developed by Martin Seligman, and he outlines the 5 core pillars of well-being as being positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So you can see here, if we're breaking the well-being of our life down to just 5 core pillars, we're really bringing it down to the nitty-gritty. Relationships is a core pillar on that model, and it's a core pillar for a reason. You making this a priority is going to have a profound impact on your overall happiness and the quality of your life. Number 2, move your body. Bonus points if it's outside. Movement and physical exercise is one of those things that is well known and well touted as being good for your physical health, but something that often gets overlooked is the fact that movement and physical exercise is so important for your mental health as well. And for the sake of this discussion, this does not need to be a certain type of movement. If there's a certain type of exercise that you enjoy more than others, or you find easier to do on a regular basis than other things, do that. Do that. This doesn't need to be complicated. This doesn't need to be stupid hard, because if I give you a task to do something that you absolutely hate, I would bet all my money on the fact that you probably would not do it. At least not consistently, right? No one wants to do something they hate forever, so why would I tell you to do that? Pick something you like that moves your body, that gets you active, gets your heart pumping a little bit harder than it would if you were sitting on the couch watching that show you love, and go do that. The goal here is not to burn a certain amount of calories or lift a certain amount of weight or do anything like that. It is really just the movement portion of it, because that in and of itself will improve your mental well-being and will improve your overall mood as you move throughout your life. A large study published in the Journal of Behavioral Nutrition and Physical Activity showed that even light daily movement was associated with increased happiness and lower levels of anxiety. Physical movement stimulates neurotransmitters like dopamine, endorphins, and serotonin, which are associated with improved mood. So on a cellular level, you moving your body is causing your brain to produce more feel-good chemicals, which will make you feel more good, just in case that wasn't clear. And on top of that, consistent physical activity and consistent exercise also gives you this sense of pride and accomplishment and an improved sense of confidence in yourself, which in and of itself will translate into an improved mood and better happiness throughout the course of your life, because you feel better about yourself at your core. That translates into everything else. The last 2 strategies that I'm going to give you are a little bit different. These are kind of unconventional tips, and I wanted to include them because I didn't want to just make a basic list of, exercise and journal and meditate and your life will be great. I wanted to actually give you some steps for dealing with adversity as well, because we all have it, right? You're not going to listen to this video and go out into the world and suddenly have a perfect life with no speed bumps and no challenges. you're going to encounter things that are going to be really fucking hard. You're going to encounter things that make you feel really shitty. And how you handle those things, how you manage adversity, is going to play a huge role in the overall happiness of your life, right? And I think on a surface level, we all know that. I think we can all probably think of somebody who has a really great life, has a lot of things to be happy for, has a lot of circumstances in place where they could be really happy people. But something has happened, there's been some sort of adversity that they have not been able to manage. They have not been able to work through it. They have not been able to put any strategies in place in order to deal with it in a productive way. And so it ends up pulling happiness from everywhere else, right? It doesn't matter what else you have going on. If you have this one really awful thing that you can't deal with, it acts as a vacuum for everything else. So us addressing this portion is crucial. So the first one I want to talk about is a decision rehearsal. This is something I want you to put in place if you are expecting adversity. If you are going into a situation where you know it's going to be really hard or really challenging or is going to include conversations or outcomes that you don't want or don't feel good about, I want you to try implementing a decision rehearsal. And what this is sitting down before you actually go into the situation and actually imagining out what the situation is going to look like and imagining how you're going to respond in that situation calmly and constructively. This is different from daydreaming or just ruminating about the thing. This is a really structured cognitive rehearsal of how you're going to react when stressful, negative things happen. And the reason for this is because how bad an outcome of a situation is, how much a negative or adverse event is going to ripple out into the rest of your life, is going to depend on how that entire event goes down. And a good part of how that event is going to go down lies in how you behave. So if you are better prepared, if you are better prepped to handle this situation, you have a bit of an idea of how you want to show up, you have a bit of an idea of what you want to say, you are going to handle the situation better. In turn, the people on the other side of this will probably handle the situation better, and overall, the negative ripple from that event will be much smaller than it would have been if you just went in there emotions heightened, super heated, and you just kind of went off the cuff and said a bunch of things that you didn't mean and did a bunch of things that you wish you didn't do. This is going to save you from that grief. A 2023 study in psychological science found that mentally rehearsing difficult emotions or outcomes helped people respond with greater emotional stability, experience less negative emotion in the moment, and help them to avoid reactive behavior patterns like rumination or avoidance. So their coping strategies after the fact were better when they mentally rehearsed ahead of time. This kind of mental rehearsal rewires the predictive model of your brain. So your brain already has this air of, I've already been here before. I already know how to handle this. So when the situation actually happens, you are much less triggered and emotionally charged because you're prepared. And the last one I want to talk about is narrative processing or expressive disclosure. What this practice is you taking a negative scenario from your life, something that you are having a really difficult time working through, and I want you to sit down and speak the experience out loud to yourself as if you're telling a story about somebody else. Walk through the entire story as if you in that experience is a character in this story. Now, I want to caveat this by saying, if you are dealing with really serious trauma that is not going to be safe for you to sit and work through on your own, I would highly recommend that you seek out the help of a trained professional to deal with this, okay? This is only going to be helpful if you are able to do it in a safe and structured manner. If you can't do that on your own, that's okay. Please seek out the professional help that you need in order to work through that properly. For everybody else, this is a practice you can do on your own, and it's something you can do anywhere. I heard a really great description of the benefits of doing this recently when I was listening to an interview between Sean Cannell and Dan Martell. And Dan Martell talked about the concept of your biggest struggles becoming your biggest strengths. And he talked about that if that was going to be the case, you had to be able to talk about them. And he gave the example of running a meeting with other individuals, and he was talking to a woman who was recounting a lot of her own trauma. And while she was doing so, she was absolutely beside herself and was overwhelmed with emotions trying to tell this story. And Dan gave her the advice that she needs to get comfortable telling the story without reliving the emotion. And he gave the analogy that your story, your really emotionally charged story, lives at the bottom of the ocean. And every time you tell the story, it starts to float a little closer to the surface. And once it gets to the surface and you get some sunlight on it, in Dan's words, it almost sanitizes it in a way and gives you the opportunity to look at it through a more objective eye. A lot of times when we have a really negative experience that we are struggling to deal with, our instinct is to avoid it. We push it down. We bury it deep at the bottom of the ocean. And because we've never let it see the light of day, we've never worked through the emotions of it. And so anytime that this gets brought up, anytime we're faced with it, we're also still faced with the significant emotional weight that is tied to it. But you sitting down and talking it out loud to yourself gives you a chance to start opening it up and working through some of that emotion so that it doesn't carry so much weight. Because the thing is, even if you think you've buried it at the bottom of the ocean and it has no impact on you, an experience with that amount of emotional weight that has not been addressed is impacting you. And you may not even realize it. It's probably showing up in the way that you talk to others. It's probably showing up in the way that you talk to yourself. It's probably showing up in the way that you operate day to day. It's probably having a pretty profound impact on your overall experience of your life. It's one of those sneaky things, which is why I wanted to put it on this list, because it's one of those things that if you don't address it, it's going to quietly suck happiness and joy from your life in the background. And so you sitting down and speaking it out loud and working through it and getting rid of some of that emotional weight is going to add a sense of levity to everything else. The reason I wanted to include this just as like a personal anecdote is because it's something I actually do a lot. I found myself doing this, not even realizing why I was doing this initially. It's something I've just kind of done without thinking for years, is oftentimes if I'm sitting in my car and there's something kind of triggering or emotionally heavy, whether it's recent or whether it's, years and years old and for some reason it's bubbling to the surface, I will start talking about the entire thing out loud as if I'm telling the story to somebody else. And for the longest time, I had no idea why I did that, but it made me feel better to do it. And thinking about it as I was putting this episode together made me realize it's because it allowed me to see it through a more objective lens. It allowed me to understand it from a more logical standpoint and less of an emotionally charged standpoint. And so it made it a lot easier for me to work through. Happiness is not a reward that you obtain by fixing or achieving something. Happiness is a byproduct of how you operate on a daily basis. And you making an effort to cut out these common mistakes and putting these 4 simple steps into practice is going to inject a lot more happiness into your life. And if you try any of them out, let me know in the comments and let me know if it made any difference on how you felt day to day, because we all could use a little more happiness in our lives. Thank you for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.